Hey guys, welcome back to the Bass Tutor. My name is Tyler Fry and I'm the Bass Tutor. So guys, today we're finishing up the top 5 favorite fall lures series. And I figured what better way to do that than to talk about my favorite watercolor to fish and my favorite type of lake, which is stained and dirtier water. You know, a lot of your rivers, ponds, lakes, a lot of them have a lot of stained to muddy water in them. And if you don't have it, a lot of times you can find it in certain areas of a lake. And so, with that being said, I wanted to go over these lures. And the reason this is my favorite type of color to fish is because it's typically going to be a reaction bite. And I love power fishing. I love throwing crankbaits and spinnerbaits. I just love the power of these fish. And as this water starts cooling down, you're able to get a lot of great reaction bites in the stained water and on power fishing lures. And so, the reason that I really enjoy fishing stained and muddy water from fall all the way through the winter time into the springtime is because it warms up quicker, okay? So if you're fishing a lake that has dirty water on one end, like I do, I fish a lake that's a river lake. So on one side, the water is super, super clear. It's where a lot of the smallmouth hang out. It's just super clear, super deep. But this used to be a river. And so when you run up the river, there's a lot of dirtier water. And a lot of the people that fish this lake, a lot of them run up there and fish the stained water because that's what everybody enjoys doing, is power fishing. And so the reason to look at this part of the water, if you live on a river lake or you fish a lake that has a lot of stained water that you can access, it's going to warm up a lot quicker. Okay, so it's going to keep a more consistent temperature than, say, the clear water. So if the clear water drops, say, 5 degrees overnight, it's going to be a lot harder to achieve and come back from that 5-degree temperature change versus the muddier stained water, because the sun takes that muddy water and it warms it up a lot quicker. It's got color to it, and the color is going to warm up a lot quicker than just normal clear water. And so that's why you may get a lot more bites in stained water, and you may get more bites in clear water. It just depends. You got to play around with it, find the creeks and stuff like that that are going to work for you. But with that being said, the reason it's one of my favorite ways to fish, like I said, is power fishing. And what better way to talk about power fishing in the fall than to talk about a crankbait? So I'm going to post a picture right here of my good buddy Marcus Davis and myself when we fished a FLW college tournament last year on Kentucky Lake. The water was super stained and we done great on these next 2 lures. And so the first lure that we done really great on was a crankbait. And so this time of year, I really love to throw a square bill or a flat-sided crankbait. The colder the water gets, the more this flat-sided crankbait comes into play. And so my 2 favorite colors for the stained to muddy water is going to be a chartreuse or a red. And I really dictate the color I throw based upon the sunlight penetration. So if it's a really sunny day and you're fishing dirty water, throw this chartreuse. It puts off a lot of flash, it puts off a lot of color and a lot of vibration. But if you're fishing on an overcast day in the dirtier water, throw something like this red black back crankbait. This is just a little KVD 1.5 square bill, and it does a really great job. Or you can throw this flat side, which done really great for me and Marcus last year on Kentucky Lake, as we found the fish were a little bit they were pulled off the bank a little bit in that 8 to 10 foot range, and this crankbait done a really great job of catching a lot of them. And so the second lure we had a lot of luck on, which really dominated the second day, was a spinnerbait. Something like this Colorado spinnerbait, a Colorado blade, or even this willow leaf blade. And so for us, the chartreuse colors really done really well last year in the stained water, and that's typically my go-to. But if you're fishing on an overcast day, I'm going to throw a black and blue spinnerbait with a Colorado blade typically. Or if I'm fishing it on a sunny day, I'm going to throw a chartreuse or chartreuse and white with a willow leaf blade if they're still active. But if you're in the late fall, try the Colorado blade. And so the reason I do this is because this willow leaf blade, I'm really able to cover a lot of water with it. I can reel it fairly quickly. And that's what was working for us last year, is we were able to get a lot of reaction bites, reeling this thing fairly quickly around them, beating it off cover, rocks and trees and stuff like that. But whenever you're fishing a little bit colder water or you're fishing super, super dirty water, this big Colorado blade on this spinnerbait right here does a really great job of putting off vibration to get those fish's attention. It's coming through there, it's real slow, and it's making a thump, thump, thump sound, and those fish just can't stand it, and they want to come up and investigate. And I'm going to throw a secret tip in there, not going to say nothing about it, and ignore it. Don't ignore it, but if you fish against me, ignore it. And so the spinnerbait does a really great job on those little bit windier days when there's a lot of chop on the water, when there's a lot of current moving. The spinnerbait can be a really great lure to power fish with and catch those fish. And so what could we do without talking about a topwater? So if you live in the South, this topwater lure is going to do a really great job for you for a lot longer than it will maybe the guys and girls up north. But I like to throw a buzzbait. Now this big black buzzbait, it's got a big Strike King Rage Craw on the back. It puts off a lot of noise. It's got a clacker on it. It's going to put off a lot of vibration, a lot of sound. And so I like to throw this thing, and I like to pick up a lot of those fish that are up shallow. Especially in the early morning times, in the early fall, you can pick up a lot of fish on a black or white buzzbait. I'll typically throw the black on the overcast days, and on the bright sunny days, I like to throw the white. That's just my preferences, but they just do a really great job of calling those fish up and getting those shallow fish to bite. Now, a lot of times there's going to be a lot of fish schooled up. And so your bass are going to be chasing shad, they're going to be chasing bait fish, and what better way to catch a lot of fish than with the Alabama rig? So this time about 3 years ago in the fall, it's probably 2 or 3 years ago, me and my good buddy Jordan Elliott, when we fished in high school, we won a tournament off an Alabama rig. It was this exact Alabama rig. And so the reason you throw this Alabama rig is it likes to mimic a lot of bait fish schools, and it does a really great job of catching these fish. And so what I like to do with my Alabama rig is I like to throw a little sexy shad swim bait on here, and I like to throw a big white one in the middle, which gives those fish something to really key in on. And depending on how dirty the water is, a lot of the times I'll take some JJ's Magic or some Spike It, and I'll put a little chartreuse on this tail to let them key in on it. And we were fishing Lake Cumberland in this tournament in Kentucky, and we were just doing a really good job of catching fish. This Alabama rig was just working great. And so a lot of the times when the fish are schooled up on your body of water, you can catch a lot of them on an Alabama rig. Now typically I like to throw it mostly in the stained water. Sometimes you can get away with throwing it in the muddy water, but I would throw something a lot more bright. I would throw all white swim baits. I would throw some just blue swim baits or black and blue swim baits. It'll make the fish key in on your baits a lot better. But stained water, I like to throw sexy shad with a big white one in the middle. That's just my preference. So lastly, there's going to be days when you're just going to have to slow down. That's just the way that life is. Sometimes you just got to slow down and catch these fish. And that's whenever I'm going to break out the big bulky jigs, the big black and blue jigs, or this one, which is actually called a Bluegrass Craw by D&L Jigs. They both work great. I'll throw this more natural color in the stained lakes because it just puts off a really good color. It's got some darker colors for the fish to key in on it, but it's also got this green pumpkin in it so that it looks a little bit more natural. But if the water is really, really muddy, or if there is an overcast day on the stained water, I'll throw a black and blue. I keep it really, really simple. And I'll throw something that puts off a lot of vibration, like a Rage Craw or a Speed Craw or something like that. Or as the winter comes closer, I'm going to throw something like this little Berkeley Chigger Craw, which is, it puts off a lot of flapping motion instead of a lot of like thumping appendages moving everywhere. So it just really depends on what your fish are keying in on, but those will really help you get a lot more extra bites. So guys, the fall is a really phenomenal time to fish, and like I said, this is the last video of the lures series, but here coming in the later fall, we're going to have a video talking specifically about the fall to winter time transition lures, which are going to vary, and they're going to become a little bit larger lures That way we can get those fish, those big fish that are wanting to feed up on a big meal and just be able to rest for wintertime. And so that is a really exciting time. So make sure you're able to get out there, throw a lot of these lures, and catch those bigger fish. And fall can be a really, really great time to fish, and it can also be frustrating. So just make sure you kind of filter through the baits, fish the sides of the lake that have the sun coming up on them. Okay, so if you fish a lake that's got a lot of cold water, like a cold front come through, find the side that the sun is going to shine on first, and that's going to help you catch a lot more fish because that water warms up quicker. Then this is going to hold true through all the way to pre-spawn and spawning time, in my opinion. But with that being said, I hope you guys learned something in today's video, and I hope you're able to take some of these lures and get out there and wet a line. We'll see you guys later.